Hey everyone, it's your teacher, Mr. Jennings, and we're back at it, or at least for the first time for you all. We're doing a video. I know in the past I've used them occasionally, but due to the extended hiatus and the fact that we still need to let the show go on, the remainder of Unit 4, which is Mendelian genetics, heredity, and evolution and biotechnology, as end of this as a series of videos. Today's video, we are going to review a little bit about the Mendel stuff. So this is from notes we started in class. Some of this here will actually be a recap. Actually, the first video we'll probably see is going to be a recap of something we've already done in class. What I encourage for you all to do is to take notes as needed if you wish. There will be activities associated with this, some sort of practice activity that you can work on at home. The grades will not be assigned to those activities, but it's mainly so you can get feedback, and submissions are greatly appreciated, and I will provide feedback as necessary. So let's talk about Mendel. So let's go ahead and get into the screen here today. Wrong one. That's the next. So today we're actually going to rehash something we really covered. Got on here. We covered way back before a couple weeks ago. So I do apologize again for not making a video mainly because I was sick. Don't think it was going around, but I've been sick. So back to the actual video here. So today we're going to talk about Mendel and his idea of genetics. So what's genetics? Well, genetics is the study of heredity. And genetics concerns themselves with genes. Now, genes are a set of characteristics inherited from your parents. Specifically, they code for protein. There are sections of DNA found on chromosomes that code for proteins. Now, recent discoveries, as within the last 100 years or so, even to recently, discoveries here, basically we deal with how characteristics are passed on from generation to generation. Now, the concept of inheriting traits from your parents is and has been known for a while. The question was how it's done and how it works has changed over the years. I'm not going to go through that video. This all deals with a guy named Mendel. So back in the 19th century, Gregor Mendel is this monk working in Austria, what is now Austria. It wasn't Austria back then. And he was doing research on pea plants. So he decided to take pea plants and study different traits of the pea plants to understand how they were inherited. Sorry, Nora knocked. Now, the trait, when we use the word trait, we're talking about a specific characteristic, example, color. Mendel's traits were contrasting. So Mendel looked at traits that were distinctly different from one another. Original pair of pea plants were called the parent, or simply the pea generation. Offspring were called F1 for first filial. Filial just another word for saying offspring. And the offspring of crosses between parents with different traits were called hybrids. So what he did was he took parents that were true breeding, or what we considered homozygous nowadays. They had only that trait. And when you crossbred them with each other, you produced hybrids. So the F1 pea plants were a combination of the traits we looked at were seed shape, seed color, seed coat color, pod shape, pod color, position of the flower, and plant height. Those were all the traits that Mendel was studying. Now, as he was studying these traits, he found out pretty quickly that when you took a round and wrinkled seed shaped pea plant, you produce an all round offspring. Seed color, you mix yellow and green, you got all yellow. When you mixed seed coat color, which is the thing that coats the seed, you got gray and white, then that produced gray. And he's noticed this trend. That means he came to some conclusions. First off, inheritance is determined by chemical factors that kind of how traits are passed on from one generation to the next, and those factors are called genes. Each of the traits were controlled by one gene that occurred in contrasting forms. These different forms are called alleles. So different forms of the same gene are called alleles. Allele literally means alternative. So not only did he determine that traits were can be passed on from one generation to the next, and they were called genes, he also determined that some alleles are dominant to others while others are recessive. Dominant alleles are always going to be expressed unless there are two copies of the recessive allele. Now, Gregor Mendel didn't know that, but he knew if you cross a recessive with a recessive, you got only recessive, but if you cross a recessive with a dominant, you always got dominant. Or at least you got more dominant than you should have. So for example, pea plants, tall is dominant while short is recessive, and yellow is dominant, green is recessive as well. So the question that Mendel had was, do alleles disappear? So when we allow all 7 kinds of F1 plants to produce F2 generation by self-pollination, basically he crossed the F1 generation with itself. So this is the P1, this is the parents, this is the F1. Now he let the F1 pollinate themselves. Basically, they went through sexual reproduction, but instead of making clones, because they pollinated themselves, there's still variation due to meiosis. So he did get them to basically produce F2. Okay, so as they go through the P1 here, you can look here, P1, there you got tall and short. And F1, all tall, meaning tall is dominant. And in F2, you got a mixture of tall and short. So that shows you that the F2 generation has actually got the recessive allele showing back up. So it skips a generation, essentially. Now the F2 cross, basically the recessive traits reappeared. Approximately 1/4 of F2 plants showed the trait of the recessive allele. This happens because there is what we call segregation or separation of alleles during the formation of sex cells, also known as gametes. Now, 2 alleles will segregate from each other, so each gamete carries only one single copy of each gene, so each F1 plant produces 2 types of gametes, one with the dominant allele and one with the recessive allele, because each of the F1s are what we call hybrids, they're heterozygous. So during meiosis, and at the end result of meiosis, you're going to get a gamete that has the dominant allele and get a gamete that has the recessive allele. And when that happens, when they cross again through F2, you get a distinct different distribution. So instead of being 100% all tall, you get 3/4 of them being tall with 1/4 being short. And it tells you right there. Now the dominant trait is always going to be represented by a capital letter, and the recessive trait will always be represented with a lowercase letter. Alright, I'm going to stop right here and kind of end the video. We'll do a second one with the applying Mendel and his principles. Okay, so we'll just kind of let's pull it back up. Alright, so to kind of recap, Mendel, he was studying some pea plants. Hold on. Sorry for that, my sons are in the other room. Okay, so to recap though, just to pick back up. So Mendel, when he was studying these pea plants, he noticed that traits are dominant and there were traits that were recessive, and that you inherited your traits from your parents. The other thing he discovered was that you only got one trait from each parent, and the traits split. Now this was counter to the actual thought at the time. At the time, it was believed that traits mixed, and that was the reason why you saw hybrids. Turns out traits don't mix. Traits are able to stick independently. That's genes. And if you think about it long enough, mixing doesn't make any sense, because if you were mixed genes all the time, eventually over time those genes will fall apart.
So you allowed something.
Hold on.
Okay,
I mean, it ain't teaching if you ain't getting interrupted by people, I guess. This time it's my sons instead of phone calls. Okay, so back to this. Here's the deal. Again, the traits do not mix. If you think about it long enough, if you were mixing traits, that every generation the traits kept being mixed and mixed and mixed, that eventually there would be no individual traits. They were just all big mush. So Mendel proved that. Now the problem with Mendel is he was largely ignored. It wasn't until much later in the 50s and 60s that people actually started paying attention to his stuff. Well, the 1900s, but really 50s and 60s really when the things started kicking in. Alright, so Next time, we'll talk about application of Mendel, which means we're going to talk a little bit about Punnett squares, but also talk about some other complex forms of inheritance. I hope you're all having a great time. Have a great day. You hear my kids in the background. It's the joys of it all. Take care. Stay healthy. Have a great day.